Good afternoon. I am Anita Tebby, and I'm a retiree from Johnson County Community College, and I am head of the travelogue of the association. And I want to welcome you, those of you that are here in person, those of you that are on Zoom, and those of you that will be looking at this that we're recording. We have a wonderful treat for you this afternoon. We have another retiree, and her name is Gayle Callahan. And so you might remember she gave a marvelous presentation on Japan recently. She and her former roommate, Joy Reed, have traveled extensively together since their college days. And their latest trip was in April, just this past April, and they were in Amsterdam. So besides seeing all the marvelous sights in Amsterdam, such as the tulips, the windmills, as well as Van Gogh's museum and Anne Frank's house, they took a 7-day bike tour and they spent the days fighting weather, looking at beautiful sights, and that's what they're going to talk about mostly today. So at nighttime, they would spend it on barges. So it's bikes and barges. So please join me and pardon me, one more thing. They would be more than happy to take questions at the end. So please join me in welcoming Gayle and Joy.
Thank you. Thanks, Anita. Good to see everyone today. Can you hear me okay, I hope, on Zoom? All right, well, this is my friend Joy. Joy and I met actually before college started and got to know each other when we were in college at Pitt State and became lifelong friends. And we've traveled several times internationally and nationally. So Joy indulged me. I had heard from a friend of a friend about this trip and thought it sounded super fun and wanted to do that. So she indulged me and we did it last April. So we went on this boat bike tour. What I don't like about this is you can't use your clicker. We went on the boat bike tour. There's a number of companies that do tours in the Netherlands and Belgium and all the European countries, but this is what our friend of a friend had used. This is the tour we chose, a Netherlands 8-day tulip tour. Tulips were promised. We booked the tour directly. And they also have tours that are guided and self-guided. Ours was a guided tour. And some of the tours are 5 days, some tours are 8 days. We had the 8-day guided tour. This is the Netherlands. This circled area is the area that's over here on the inset where we spent our time. The Netherlands has 12 provinces, and we were in the 2, North Holland and South Holland. And you'll see this slide more as we make our way through the tour. April weather in the Netherlands is unpredictable, changeable. It might sound familiar to those of us who live in Kansas. But we got the short straw on the weeks. The weeks highlighted here in red is when we were there. And if you'll notice the week before and the week before that, they were lovely. The week we were there, not so much. Week after, lovely. Now, the tulips, there was a warm spring. The tulips came out early this year. So we tried to hit the middle and we kind of hit towards the end and the bad weather. But yeah, it would have been nice to have been there the first couple weeks of April, but that's okay. This may show that it was a sunny day on the 17th. It was not. It was sometimes, and then it would not be. So we definitely needed our rain gear at all times. And you'll see pictures of that where the day we arrived, you'll see where we had rain and sun and everything. The one thing you can count on is it's windy. It's always windy.
Those windmills are a clue.
So we're going to start with the barge and bike portion of the trip, and then we'll take you back to Amsterdam later. This is our ship, the Allure, and these are our bikes. They provide the bikes. They provide regular bikes or e-bikes, and we thought, hey, it's flat. We will train, and we will be fine on a regular bike. I would get the e-bike.
Yeah. You don't have to use the electrical assist, but you have it if you need it. So,
get the e-bike.
Yeah, absolutely. If I were doing it again.
This is our room on the Allure. It's very basic, very cozy. It had everything we needed. We had our own private bath and a closet and beds. And I was very excited that the windows opened on this boat. That was not necessary. The windows were never open. So throughout, I'm going to present the dinners that we had. We had a fabulous chef cook on the boat, and Anna, and she put a lot of thought into her meals and the themes, and they were very good. The friend of a friend had told us that the meals weren't much of anything special, but we thought that ours were quite good. The thing that stood out in this first night's dinner was the chocolate mousse, but I'm a chocolate fan. So the first day we got on was the Friday. We'd landed in Amsterdam on Wednesday, and then Friday we went to the boat. Friday was the worst of those 3 days, and the captain ruled that we could not sail. So we stayed in Amsterdam that night, and that put us a little bit behind the next day because we had to sail to Haarlem before we could begin our bike riding. So we began riding in Haarlem, and we rode to the Kokenhof Gardens, and those are gorgeous. And I'll show you a few pictures here in a moment. They are only open for about 8 weeks, from mid-March to early May each year. And so they are always busy. I learned that a normal day has 26,000 visitors, but the day we were there was a Saturday, and it was the parade day. So who knows? What do you think? 50,000?
I would say that, and all over the world, we heard all languages. Wow.
And that's something I forgot to put in the presentation. They, of course, speak Dutch in the Netherlands, but they speak English. They speak English perfectly. There is no need to learn any Dutch. Joy can pronounce a number of things and say a few words.
Duolingo.
Gayle cannot. So here's a few pictures from the Kokenhof, and it was just gorgeous. While we were there, I don't think it rained much while we were actually in the gardens. There are gazillions of pictures online that beat any pictures we have, so we've just done a couple representative slides. This one was really fascinating to me. I noticed it was kind of a little mound or hill, and these great hyacinths formed the stem of a flower, and then the tulip beds formed the flowers or the petals. I just thought that was really cool. And Joy took a picture of me with all the beautiful purple tulips because purple is my favorite color. Yeah, you want to talk about this one?
The one there on the far right is a crown imperial. I was really excited at seeing one of those in person. I've seen them in the garden catalogs all these years. And, a form of a fritillary, if that means anything to you botanically.
The Kokenhof is a huge, huge place. And as I said, it was quite crowded. And my husband's here in the audience, and I haven't even admitted this to him yet, but we were the people that you don't want on a tour. We got back to our bikes late because we were waiting in line, hoping to use the restroom one more time, and realized that wasn't going to happen. Then we had to try to find our way out, and we couldn't because it's a big place. But we did. We made it to our bikes, and everybody was gone. We're like, well, okay then. Do we have that emergency number? But just as we were getting up to our bikes, our guide, Marcel, came riding back, and he had taken them to the parade so they could see the parade. And so it was very short distance. We followed him. We did not actually see any of the parade, except maybe the tops of some of the floats because it was so crowded. These pictures are not ones I took because you couldn't get any pictures, but it looked like it was really fun and fascinating. If you'd gotten there hours before to wait to see the parade, probably was very nice. As we rode to the Kokenhof and from the Kokenhof, we did see tulip fields. So these are some of the fields that we saw.
I was really excited that we also saw a hyacinth field and smelled it too, because they're so aromatic. And my sister, who used to live in Belgium and was familiar with the area, was like, oh, hyacinths, the hyacinths. So we got in just on the tail end. That was a great pleasure because as beautiful as the tulips is, the hyacinths have it over for that wonderful odor.
Yeah. Tulips are grown here for the bulbs. So they don't cut the flowers. These aren't the flowers that are being shipped to you. These are grown for the bulbs, and you cannot walk in the tulip fields because you can bring in diseases, you can trample the bulbs. So you're not allowed there, but we could take the pictures as we went along. This is our dinner menu. She made it a Dutch and floral theme. It was lovely. Dessert consisted of a rather bland pudding, but it had rose water in it and this chocolate, this molded chocolate. Some were roses and some were windmills. And I was very excited when I found them in a shop in Houda to bring back for souvenirs. So we'll see a picture of that later. But so the next day, we rode from Leiden, I get it wrong every time. Leiden to Houda, you say it better.
Houda.
It was a 27-mile ride. We were so excited there was no rain, but oh my gosh, we did have wind, and a section of it was a very strong headwind. But we rode for a little bit and stopped at a coffee shop and had refreshments and used restrooms. Then we rode a little bit more and stopped at a casino that had a rose garden next to it where we could sit down and eat our lunches. We packed our lunches every morning so we could make sandwiches. And then we had our bags that we put those in, and we had those lunches with us. Along this route from Leiden to Houda, we saw sheep, goats, swans, cows. Our guide, Marcel, explained that the cows were just coming out because this area is below sea level, so it's very, very wet, and it's been too wet for the cows to be out. It was very interesting to me that there were just like swans just sitting in fields, just here's a swan, there's a swan, just sitting around in the fields. I think of swans in water. So when we started in Leiden, thank you. When we start in Leiden, that is the birthplace of Rembrandt. He was born in July of 1606. So there's a lot of Rembrandt stuff. Here is his house, birthplace. Here is a statue of him painting, and then a portrait on the building. This is also where the Pilgrims lived before they went back to England and then ultimately on to America on the Mayflower. So there's the Mayflower Hotel, and very fittingly, the Burger and Shake place on the lower level. So
I'm sure they thought that was a quintessentially American tribute there.
Then when we arrived in Houda, it was chartered in 1272. A very old city. This is the town hall building. It's a very large building. And on the half hour, these puppets come out and dance, and music is performed. I had a Heineken deer, so while I was there, because, that's Dutch. While we were sitting enjoying our Heineken, Joy noticed that the building next to this place we were at had the Kansas motto backwards, for Aspera ad Astra. And so we pointed that out to our
what are the odds?
Seatmates and translated it for them. And Gouda cheese comes in many flavors, including marijuana or hemp or whatever. So
weed, I think, was what
weed. Yes, there you go. There's our dinner that night. It was a Moroccan theme. No pictures of that one. I don't know. All right. So from Houda, we sailed, and then we went to Alphen aan den Rijn. Is that it? Good. To Kudelstart. That was a 15-mile, and that was the day that did me in. It was windy. It was strong headwinds. It was gusty. It took every ounce of energy to get those 15 miles. Joy got to borrow an e-bike for a mile until the lady that loaned it to her said, I want it back.
I think she saw that I was struggling and offered to trade. And then after she'd gone a mile or so, she'd had enough of it. So again, get the e-bike, lesson learned.
We met this bike enclosed in this little vehicle and wished we were going that direction and had the vehicle. But we did see some beautiful countryside with the farm animals out. That night, dinner started with a tomato basil soup, and by this time my throat was sore and I really enjoyed the soup. I should have just eaten soup, and it was a lovely Italian dinner though. So the next day we got up early, and before breakfast we took a ride to the flower market. And it was just a short ride. I think it was maybe 5 or 6 miles round trip, but it was cold. It was 34 degrees. But the winds were light at that early in the morning. And it was an easy ride. We were, dressing, there was no problem. We had warm clothes. It was just those winds. After we returned, then we had breakfast, and then we went on up. The flower market is near Alsmar, and it's very near the Schiphol airport, which is the Amsterdam airport. The planes were flying right under our noses. So this is a green room shot of Joy and I actually down in the flower market. You can't go down there, but you'll see what we could see of it from above. The flower market is the size of 250 football fields. All the flowers are on one level, and they tell us 46 million flowers are traded daily. Flowers come in from all over the world and go out all over the world from here. So we walked on this track that was above the flower market, and this is what we saw below. So these, I think, some were on rails, just moving, and they knock off flowers here and there. And others were being driven by people on little forklifts pushing things about the size of one of these around. And they were just going zip, 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 zip. It looked like chaos to me, but I think they really did know what they were doing. Anyway, that was a pretty fascinating place to go.
The proximity of the airport then is for shipping the flowers out then once they're sold.
Schiphol Airport's one of the busiest airports in Europe. So it's probably because of all the flowers. I don't know. So we returned to the boat and had our breakfast and packed our lunches. And I stayed on the boat because my chest hurt, my sinuses were full, I was coughing, my throat was sore, it was miserable. And I really believe that it was those winds and fighting those winds, because I did not really have any other signs of infection or anything like that. But Joy was a good sport, and she rode that day. So I think I let you take it from here.
Yeah, Zonsachans, quaint town, has a little bit of the air of a tourist place, but there's like a dairy there where you can buy yet more cheese, a working windmill where you can buy the products there, and a number of windmills that are there just for show. So it's an impressive sight right there on the water. Our barge, when it came in, sailed right up there near it there, so it was easy to get back on when we were done. And there was like a little museum there that you could go through for an additional fee there on the one working windmill.
I did get to go into the town because they rode faster than the barge got there. So I hope to just kind of look around. I said, Joy, text me when you get there and I'll come out and meet you. But the next thing I knew, she was on the ship or boat.
Yes, and on our way there to the tourist town, we went through a park there near Amsterdam, and there was a pond out there, and our guard Marcel dared us to take off our shoes and socks and go wading, and I and the hardy Canadian Derek were the only takers on that deal there. So
when Joy told me that she had done that, I'm like, well, how'd you dry your feet?
Oh, Marcel actually had a towel on it, so he was kind enough to do that. But at that point, I was thinking, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I may never get back to the Netherlands. And I have a part of my thing is putting my feet in bodies of water. I've been to the Ganges and the Nile and the Amazon. So here I added another to my collection there.
In the evenings, one evening, Joy and I were playing cards, the game of golf, and some other ladies noticed us, and so we taught them to play. And these are a group of 4 that travel together as well. And we actually came down one evening and noticed that they were playing without us.
And we figured our work there was done.
This night we had a Dutch dinner, and it probably wasn't my favorite. The Dutch aren't really known for the cuisine, so they eat from all over the world. But it was very, much what they do eat. All right, so on the last day, well, not last, this is the next last day, isn't it, of writing, Neither Joy nor I rode. They went from Zonshan's to Alkmaar. And all we wanted to do was get off in Alkmaar and go to a store and get, for me, I wanted more Kleenex and we wanted some medicine.
Yes, and I had brought 3 doses of NyQuil with me, and I was like on my last dose. So I go into the pharmacy and explain my symptoms, and she brings out some stuff that when I inspect it, it's homeopathic. And I'm like, oh no, I need something, that will control them. So I won't have a stuffy head so I can sleep. And she says, oh, that's not legal here. The stuff that is not good for your heart. And I'm thinking, this is Amsterdam. That marijuana is legal. Mushrooms, hallucinogenic mushrooms are legal, but you can't buy dextromethorphan. So who knew?
That night was the chef's day off, so we ate in town. We and several of the other passengers found an Italian place. It was lovely. It was way too much food, but that's okay. Now, the final day of biking, which again, Joy and I did not bike this, only 6 people biked that day, was from Alkmaar back to Amsterdam to our port. Some of the people did take the train to get back to Amsterdam earlier and have time to sightsee because they were going on and not spending time in Amsterdam. By all accounts, it was a miserable ride. They said they had hail. The ferries, waiting on the ferries was just miserable in the rain and cold. So we were glad we just sort of rested and tried to feel better. We docked near the Science Museum, which is named Nemo because it kind of looks like Nemo. It has a slanted roof with a rooftop garden. And we did walk over and go up and visit that after we got into port. Last night was an Indonesian dinner. Those of you who know me know that I don't eat a lot of Southeast Asian foods at all, but I was a little dubious. But happily, it was delicious. Happily, they had all the spices on the side so we could pick and choose our spices. Then dessert was this pavlova. So it's a meringue, and she put some berries on there. And then this here is the chocolate I mentioned earlier that came in a tulip or a windmill. And we did not win the lottery on this one. Someone else at our table got that chocolate, but oh well. It was a delicious dinner and a lovely end of the trip. The final day, Friday the 26th, was the day we got off after breakfast. We then walked our luggage over to the central train station and stored them in lockers so we could spend most of the day touring Amsterdam. That was a really nice day. It was 53 degrees, and I don't think it rained at all.
And light winds.
Well, we weren't biking into it anymore either. That helps. So Amsterdam. Amsterdam, here's a nice little skinny house. They taxed on the canal frontage. So these people didn't pay near as much taxes as their neighbors. Here's a couple canal views. We did a canal boat tour and we saw this place where you can see 7 canal bridges lined up. I don't think I quite see it in the picture, but if you're down at the canal level, you can see 7. And then this is just another typical picture of a houseboat on the canal with the typical Amsterdam homes. The Grand Hotel Amrith. If you go and you can stay there, by all means do so. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous building. If you can't stay there, then go visit because it's a gorgeous, gorgeous building. It opened in 1916 as a ticket office for travelers to book passage to the West Indies and Africa and the United States and beyond. And so it was a grand room. I, of course, as you know, was the bursar when I worked here at Johnson County Community College. And so I was like, oh, look, cashier windows. But that's where people bought their tickets to sail across this oceans. And our guide actually took us on a tour of that the night we were in Amsterdam. This is in a souvenir shop, but I had to sit in the shoe. And our guide told us that they do still wear these wooden shoes in the Netherlands, and that he puts straw or paper in his shoes to keep his feet dry, and it protects his feet from anything you step on or when you use a shovel to dig in. So
It was like the early equivalent of steel-toed boots. Again, protect the foot.
Yeah, and they're still doing it. So the first day we were there, we took a walk from the central station down toward Dam Square. As we're walking along, we're like, that sounds like a marching band. And we turned around, and it sure enough was a marching band. And it had several military units. And we're like, wow, I wonder what's going on. And then we get down here to the Palace Square, and they stopped. And we didn't stick around to see the whole presentation, but there was quite a presentation going on. And there was a lot of tourists looking around. So we found someone that looked like a tour guide and said, what's going on? And she said that some dignitaries, she thought probably from Spain, but she wasn't sure, or had come to visit the King and Queen of the Netherlands. That was pretty cool to see that. Now, this is the first day. So the next few slides are all the first day. So you will notice how the weather changes minute by minute. This is
in between those two slides.
Yeah, and that's about 10 minutes apart. And then we tucked away in around Amsterdam are these little housing projects. This one is one that we went into. You want to say it? So we knew from the Rick Steves guide to where it was and where to turn, and there were guards, and they were, reminding us that people live here. These are people's homes, and to be respectful. So this is the only picture I took since there wasn't anyone out and about, but we saw these women that live there. Right now, it's a community of subsidized housing for about 100 single women, mostly Catholic seniors. And we did see them going, I think I saw one lady go and pick up another lady at her door, and they walked together to the church. And it just was so peaceful and tranquil, and
an atmosphere of really deep tranquility there, and beautiful too, as you can see from the photo.
Yeah, and it wasn't raining
At that moment.
Then we went to lunch, and it's clearly raining here. So there was a mall, which was great for a pit stop. And then it had a restaurant up in a kind of a tower over the mall. And so we went up there for lunch, and it began to rain. So you can see the rain on the windows there. Moments later, we went to the Mint Tower and the flower market, where, again, clear skies. Okay, this, I think it was a different day that we visited the Homo Monument, which they have the monument consists of these 3 triangles, which reclaims the symbols that the Nazi used to label homosexual men in the concentration camps. And then here's a souvenir shop there. So that was kind of a neat area. This is fairly near the Anne Frank house, as I recall. That area. The Rijksmuseum is the big Dutch art museum. It is an imposing and impressive and gorgeous building. And we saw about this much of it, a teeny tiny amount of it. But that's the building, and the flower gardens had the tulips in them. So that was very pretty. But what we did see in the Rijksmuseum, these are 2 that I selected that really stood out. Night Watch, we looked it up, it's about 12 by 14. It's big. It's a big wall in the room just to itself. And but they had guides to explain what the people in the portrait are doing. It was very impressive to see. I was glad I saw it. We really did stay in kind of the old masters area of the Rijksmuseum. I put the threatened swan in because when I first saw it, I'm like, oh wow, it felt threatening. Threatening to me, not threatened by it, not it threatened by us. And then when we saw the swans later, it's like gave me a whole new